royalty-free song is playing.
Hello, my
We
friend.
don't. Hey, buddy, how are you?
Not bad, not bad. We are here with Videodrones episode, is it 3?
This is episode, oh god, yeah,
It's
episode
episode
3.
in the canon, but it's
In the
episode
canon.
4 in the production canon of
In the
things.
production canon, yeah, because I have my notes here as episode 4 notes, and then I'm like, oh wait, oh no.
Yeah, I keep on messing it up too. It's all good. We'll get
Yeah.
it. We'll get it someday.
Yeah.
So we're here today covering Garth Marenghi's Darkplace.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, it's like a throwback to Beef House a little bit.
Oh,
It's so
a little.
densely packed with weird humor that is incomprehensible. But
Holy shit, yeah.
holy hell, is it great! And we are also covering Spaced, which is one of my favorite shows ever. I probably rate it as my favorite comedy show of all time. I've watched it in totality a number of times.
I would say both of these shows respectively are quite formative for the two of us.
Big time.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where the parallel comes. I mean, Sam, you had showed me Garth Marenghi's Darkplace back in high school.
I'm trying to remember the story of how I discovered it. I'm trying to. I think every time I think about it, I just see like weird demonic symbols, and I remember like screaming, and I remember like flames, and then I woke up and I was like, I should Google this thing. But yeah, no, Garth Marenghi. I don't remember how I tracked it down. I think like a mutual friend of a friend showed it to me, or I mentioned it to me or something, and I found it on YouTube.
That's usually the way.
Usually the way, right?
And thank God for it being on YouTube, because it's probably impossible to find any other way.
Almost impossible. I remember showing it to you. We were in class for our what was that? What was it even?
It's like communications or
communications
something like that.
technology or whatever. Yeah, in
Yeah.
high school. And
Know about it.
it is truly a cult classic by every
Yeah.
standard.
Like it's
Yeah.
a comedy show that really has it's like ephemeral. Like it's only a season long. There's only like 6 episodes.
There's
I
6
think, maybe
episodes.
7?
Yeah,
Yeah, 6 episodes.
There's 6 episodes, and then they released a mockumentary about the making of the show afterwards. That's like a half an hour. Called,
I didn't know that.
It's called Darkplace Immaterium or something like that, and it's literally just a half an hour of the fake interviews that they do in the show.
I'm actually writing that down. Darkplace Immaterium.
I think Immaterium or something like that. I'm actually gonna look it up because I might be wrong.
I'm sure it's something ridiculous and
It is
incomprehensible like that.
Yeah.
But I struggled to describe it. It feels like a parody of like the old Westfall kind of hospital dramas and soap operas like ER and all that kind of stuff. But it's like all mixed with the occult and really weird symbolism.
It's like very specifically the style of the show. Actually, should we really jump into it now? Because we should also say the other show that we're going to be talking about is Spaced, of course.
Yes, of
which
course,
is
yeah.
what you're obsessed with.
Yeah.
And did we want to talk about anything before we really jump into the meat of it?
I think that we should just jump
hop
right
on in?
into it. Yeah, I can't
Alright.
really think of a lot to go into that this show doesn't kind of explain through its story beats and its narrative. There's not a lot of background on it. I guess maybe we could go through the main cast.
Sure.
the
Well,
cast.
so this show came out in 2004. It's directed by Richard A. Wade, who is one of my favorite
Fantastic
comedians. He's absolutely terrific. He's a British comedian, and he's just terrific.
He also directed Submarine, as far as I
Yes.
know, and which is one of my favorite coming-of-age movies ever. And
didn't he direct that Jesse Eisenberg movie where he plays himself, the double or whatever? Or I believe he's directed a couple things, and they're all weird. Richard A. Wade is just a very strange man. He's absolutely hilarious.
Well, he's very well respected in the comedy world. Like, he gets a lot of credit, like writing credits on a lot of like really big stuff that I can't remember the name of right now, honestly. But,
yeah,
like
I would say him and Taika Waititi are both in the same realm of just like they make really genuinely hilarious satire that is very clever, and both are pretty respected in those fields. Like they're both of them are just they're like I don't know, like our brains are insane and we make crazy, hilarious stuff. It's just I love them both.
I really liked Submarine for that kind of reason, because that kid's mind is just as screwed up as it's like in the book as it is in the movie, and it's crazy how he's able to portray that kind of that adolescent anxiety like so accurately, and all of like kind of figuring out where you stand morally and all that kind of stuff, but he's doing it in a really like out there kind of just abstracted way, I guess. It's really interesting. He's a great director. He's a really fantastic director.
Really, really good.
And it's
really good.
Also Matthew Holness. I don't know a lot about him, but he's the main character. He's Garth Marenghi. Yeah.
He's Garth Marenghi, aka Dr. Rick Douglas, MD. And him and Richard Ayoade created and wrote this show together.
Yeah.
And I was trying to look up Matthew Holness's other credits. He hasn't really done a ton. After this, he mostly does a lot of like indie comedy in England. He doesn't really have any kind of like mainstream kind of presence in film or television from what I could tell.
His Wikipedia page is him playing a guitar, like an acoustic guitar. Like, I don't know. Oh, he's in The Office.
He was in a British Office. He was in like 2 episodes or something like that, I think.
Interesting.
Yeah. So he's done some things, but I don't think anything too recent.
But he's fantastic in the show. He's
so funny,
hilarious, and the show would not be nearly as good if he wasn't in it. His kind of he reminds me of John Doerr. Remember that Canadian comedian like back in the day? He had like the John Doerr show.
Yeah, I kind of remember. Oh,
Off the wall, kind of like Canadian Tim and Eric a little bit.
I know. I remember who you're talking about.
The brashness reminds me of that a little bit. But it's been a while since I watched anything John Doerr.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. Great show. I feel like we could probably just dive right on into this.
Yeah, let's dive right into it. So so this is a Darkplace is a mockumentary satire of B horror films from the 1980s. Like, this very much lives within a place of like the first thing and most important thing that comes to me is just like purely a parody of like Stephen King and Stephen King's movies and all the stuff that he released in the 80s. You know, we're talking about like The Langoliers and It and all that kind of stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very much feels like. Oh, sorry.
Do you think it's rooted entirely in that, or do you think it's taking kind of from a lot of different sources, kind of spaced?
It's taken from a lot, but I think definitely the first thing, specifically with like Garth Marenghi, the writer, director, actor, and dreamweaver, Garth Marenghi. He's very much Stephen King. Like, that is, he's like Stephen King in the 80s when he was high on cocaine 24/7. Like, that is just this purebred narcissist. Like, that's who this character is, and that's everything in this show is about how narcissistic this character is.
Yeah, it's
everything.
The ultimate power fantasy.
Yeah, like just a huge power
unhinged,
fantasy.
Completely unhinged. Yeah. And it's really absurd to see this like really misogynistic, horrible kind of man just going completely buck wild with his imagination. It's being let into this guy's like literal mind. And he's insane right away.
Into his dark place.
Into his
dark place.
Dark place.
Dark place. And and literally no one. It's just you're watching the creation of a person who at no point did anyone tell him no. Like, that's the crux of this whole show within a show within a show.
Everybody thinks that he's a genius. He's the smartest man in the room always.
Always. And
he's credited with writing several books, which I've written down the titles of.
Oh, please! I would
like to go through these. There's a shot like initially, and it shows all of his titles.
The book, the wall of books.
Exactly. So one of the titles is The Told, Slicer 4, Slicer, Afterbirth, and that's a movie about a giant placenta attacking San Francisco, aka
attacking Bristol.
Bristol, my bad. Okay, Bristol, and that's The Blob, as far as I can tell. Which is that's a Stephen King story, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So that's like directly confirming what you're saying, essentially. My personal favorite, in all caps, Juggers, Black Fang, Slasher, and Ripper, Ripper, by Garth Marenghi. What a visionary!
Honestly,
My God, as
a
good as
plethora
writing
of
books,
works.
yeah, as good as at writing books as he is writing titles. It's
Absolutely.
pretty fantastic. So yeah, it's like starting off with him kind of being interviewed and laying the base for what the show is.
Yeah, the beginning of it starts off with him like in his study, and it's very much like kind of a classic 80s pulp opening of like, you know, the creator. It's very Twilight Zone. This Twilight Zone's another huge inspiration for the show.
Yeah, I was gonna say it reminded me of the TV shows that you can see on the TVs in Alan Wake. Like the really wacky kind of overdone, like obviously we are trying to be Twilight Zone right now, but we can't because of copyright reasons. So it's Quantum Falls or whatever the fuck. I think that this gave me heavy vibes of that specifically.
Totally.
Yeah, I what you were saying.
It starts off and he's, you know, very much the Hitchcock character being like, "Hello, I'm visionary Garth Marenghi," and he launches into it, and the setup for this and him presenting Garth Marenghi's Darkplace to the world is he had it made, and then the studio said no to airing it, and then he said, "But now the studio's come crawling back, begging me to dig it up out of my basement." So he goes down to his basement and finds some old film reels. And then he says, and I love this, he says, "I spent 3 hours of my life conducting interviews for the show."
I have that written down. 3 whole hours of interviews. And it's like interviews with 2 different people, I think.
Yeah, with himself and his producer, Dean Lerner. Those are the only 2 people that he talked to.
And they were probably, like, Dean Lerner was probably asking him the questions in his interview and vice versa as well. So
yeah, exactly.
You got to appreciate the self-awareness. It's constantly digging on its own production value, which I have to love. I can't not love that. So he goes into the basement and he fishes it out. He fishes out the film reel, and what happens? You got the beats, man.
Yeah, and then he's basically, "All right, and then without further ado, I present to you Darkplace." And then we jump into the actual intro for the show. Like we did our creator intro or sort of like setup, and now we jump straight into the opening credits of Garth Marenghi's Darkplace, where it's like very Twilight Zone. He's typing at a desk that's spinning around in a black void in space, and he's with his voiceover being like, "I'm Dr. Rick Douglas, MD, and I work at Darkplace Hospital," and like, basically, yeah, with the fucking Twilight Zone theme song.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's so good, and it just and then we cut to a montage. Basically, he sets up the story about like, okay, you know, we work at this hospital, and there's demons, and then we cut to the actual like classic credits of just like a montage of clips. Half the clips you never see in the actual show.
Yeah, of course.
Are never seen. Half of them are, and half of them aren't.
And they're all like super, super high octane, like big explosions, like
super high
lots
octane.
of guns, lots of stuff. Like there's seasons that were already filmed that they didn't get to release afterwards.
Yep, and everybody in this hospital is armed to the teeth. Like so it's. There's explosions. Yeah, he's at one point there's like an ambulance blowing up behind him, and he's got a baby, and he just does like a huge dive into like a trench with this baby, like just absolute insanity. It feels like just this 70s pulp bullshit B movies vibe, right? And another great thing is like it's obvious right away. It's like because this came out in 2004, and they put so much effort into making this look and feel like something straight out of the 80s.
Oh, big
like,
time.
The attention to detail, the film grain, the dubs, the quality of it. Like literally, if someone was like, "We found this, it's from the 80s,"
it's lost.
I would believe it.
Yeah,
I would believe it if I did not know that this show. If I did not know the things I knew about the show when I was watching it the first time, and someone was like, "Oh yeah, this is some crazy show from the 80s," I would believe them. Absolutely, I would.
Like this is some crazy piece of satire from the 80s. You put it onto a VHS, you pop it in. This is the only way that you could get it. This is the only way that I could watch it. And then
Yeah.
you're like, okay, yeah, sure. This is exactly from
Yeah,
that time frame.
I found this laser disc in an abandoned house. What's on it? Like that's the feel of the show.
The cover's got like a warped by fucking water
Yeah.
damage, all that good
It's
stuff.
it's like a face screaming in shadow. Is like the cover of the fucking DVD.
Straight out of a 4chan copy pasta. Not
Exactly.
Good. Good stuff. Yeah, yeah. I have a note here saying like it's completely self-aware, like so fucking self-aware. And then
All
he
the
has
time.
like a completely irrelevant quote from King Lear, which is cited improperly. Like he just has page 49 or whatever. It's like, okay,
Yeah,
well,
King Lear, page 49.
What copy, man?
I didn't write down the quote, but yeah. So we get through the titles, and then we hit this title screen. We have an opening shot of a model of the hospital, this miniature model, which is perfect.
yeah, it's great,
right?
Yeah, it looks like it looks like a kids show.
Exactly right, and
Yeah.
and they have this wonderful little scale model, like Star Wars style scale model, and then it just says episode 1, Once Upon a Beginning, and then it zooms in on the model, it zooms in on the front door, and we cut to our kind of first scene of the show, which is our female lead, whose name I can't remember now. I don't know if they say it once.
Yeah, Alice Lowe.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
she
Alice
enters the hospital. She walks, and then she gets down to like pet a cat that isn't there, and then a stagehand off a screen throws a cat in front of her, and then she starts to pet it,
And then
it's
whispers
perfect.
To her.
It whispers to her,
What does it say? Get out, run.
"Get out now! Get away! Get away!" And then she says, "Huh, that cat just told me to get away." And then she keeps going, and it's perfect. That whole beginning is like, okay, this is exactly what we're doing. Like,
emblematic of the rest of the series. It's not going to make any sense. Nobody's paying attention to anything.
Yeah.
Everything is made to be convenient for the plot to just move forward in the most efficient way possible.
yeah, at a breakneck speed, so much happens in this first episode.
Yeah, if you were to sit down and like actually analyze everything that happened in this, like a serious lore analysis, it would be really dark and really complicated, and you would have a lot going. Like you could probably
Yes.
have an entire like character branch and timeline for the Garth Marenghi universe if you were to watch the whole series.
It's so dense. Like
Mm-hmm.
like you said with Beef House, like it has as much information in this 22-minute episode that Beef House does in its 13-minute episode. Like,
Yeah.
or no, sorry, it has more. It's just it's intense how fast it moves.
Yeah,
Like,
packed densely. It's like a pumpernickel bread. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
I notice new things every time I watch this show.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the nature of it, I think. They
Yeah.
hide things that are supposed to kind of be discovered after you pay more attention, which I love. And I think that comes across a lot with like the production stuff, the kind of production value of things and props, and like the weird discrepancy in like just general script consistency and continuity. And then the competence.
Continuity is my favorite.
Oh, the continuity's terrible, but it's great. And they have
So funny.
that juxtaposed by like these really competent special effects, all
Yeah.
focused on like goring up an entire room, or like he has a flamethrower at one point.
Yeah,
It's
massive
insane.
explosions. Yeah,
I wonder if that was a real flamethrower. It looks really good.
it probably was.
Yeah.
It probably was. To be perfectly honest,
Shout out to Wholeness. That was probably a fun day of filming.
absolutely. Yeah, and that's I can't wait to get to that. That's definitely jumping ahead because we
yeah.
have a lot to get through before
For
the
sure.
flamethrower scene.
Yeah.
So, yeah. What happens next? Okay, yes. So she goes up to the front desk to talk to the receptionist. I guess this receptionist he's not a nurse. He's just a guy in a sweater
Yeah. And
at this hospital.
yeah, he's just chilling there.
He's just chilling. And she goes up and she's like, "Hello, I'm looking for a job. I just graduated from what'd she say? Harvard, Yale, Stanford. I just graduated from Harvard, Yale, Stanford. Top of my class. I'm top 3% GPA. I got an A in being a doctor," is what she says.
Like, wow.
And he says,
That's great.
"Oh wow, that's so good. We just had a doctor die under mysterious circumstances. You can start today."
It's like, well, maybe I want a minute. Maybe I need a minute. I don't know if I'm ready just yet. It's like, well, we've already called the person. I've already called the
Yeah,
sound.
we've already called
sound
Dr.
alarm.
Sanchez. Yeah.
Was it What's his
Dr.
name?
Dr. Rick Sanchez.
It's
Oh, no, sorry.
Sanchez.
Dr. Sanchez, and then Rick Douglas is our main character, but Dr. Sanchez, Lucian Sanchez.
Okay, because I heard them call him like Sanjo at some point or something like that. Like maybe it's a nickname. Or
Sanj. They call him
Sanj.
Sanj.
That's it.
As
That's
his
what it
nickname.
was. Okay.
That
makes
but yeah,
sense.
no, Dr. Lucian Sanchez, played by wonderfully by I can never remember this actor's name, but he was in the IT Crowd, and he's in a show that I've been meaning to watch on Netflix called the Best Show in Town or something like that. Anyway. I'm going off on a tangent.
No.
I'm going off on a tangent about things that I'm only half remembering, so
That's all
I'll
good.
forget
Don't
that.
worry about it.
I'll leave that for now. But yeah, he's amazing. I love this actor. So he shows up, Dr. Rick Sanchez, and all of his lines, all of his dialogue in this entire show is dubbed.
Yep.
And it's hilarious.
Yeah, and they have
Because he's
lore
got
reasoning.
such a thick voice.
It's so weird, and it's so ill-fitting. It's the
Yeah.
only person who has dubbed audio. And
Yeah.
like they have dubbed audio for other characters at some points, but it's not nearly as pronounced as this guy's. Like it's so much, and it's like it took me by surprise. I was like, why are they dubbing this guy's entire voice track? It makes no sense. This just sounds horrible. But therein lies the joke.
Exactly.
And you gotta love that. You gotta love the production value jokes. Again, like really taking a risk with that, because some people would be like, okay, this is really annoying. I can't handle this. Like his mouth not being in sync with what he's saying.
Totally. I love the show, but again, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to compare it to Beef House, because Beef House I was watching, I'm like, oh, this is like legitimately like an alienating experience. Whereas Garth Marenghi is like, it's like you're watching some kind of weird, it's like you're watching like a weird alien creature give you a hug.
Yeah.
Like that's, I don't know, it's so welcoming and inviting and off-putting at the same time. It's just hilarious.
You're kind of like going into it, and all of your assumptions about TV are like kind of realized. Like,
yeah.
And like all of the kind of tropes that they're playing on, you're like, oh yeah, you're right. I see that. Yeah, that's fun. I like that that's there. But then also you get these experiences where you're like, oh, okay, things are getting really serious. Like with the shovel. Is all I'll say.
With the shovel. Oh, yeah,
my
we'll get to the shovel.
Goodness gracious, the shovel is crazy. So I guess it cuts to Garth.
Oh, right. Oh, no. So Sanchez comes up and he's like, hello, I'm Dr. Rick Sanchez. And he goes in to shake her hand, and they shake hands, and immediately it goes to like his inner monologue, and he's like, my hand, and then he starts to scream, and it's like a dub scream of like, like a Wilhelm scream, and she's like, and he's like, and the guy behind the counter's like, what's going on? And we have all these weird visions of like gore and like melted skeletons, and like there's like a cat running around, and she's like, oh my god, I'm having a psychic vision. And then she collapses on the ground, and after he was like screaming and like dying, and then as soon as she lets go, he goes, are you all right? And she says, not really, on the ground, like with her eyes wide open.
Yeah, like
so
after they had both been screaming at the top of their lungs for...
Exactly.
Like, it's a 45-second cut, or 45-second like thing. Like it's a long, extended screaming session.
And they play with it too. Like at one point, like he's like screaming, and he's like looking around at like the director. He's like looking back. Like it's very... They play with it. Every single moment is mined as for as much as it can get.
Oh,
I
for
think,
sure.
in this show.
It's artfully done. It's artfully done without a doubt. So you have the handshake, and what happens next?
Then that's it. That's the cold open.
That's the cold open.
Then
okay.
we get introduced to Dr. Rick Douglas. The elevator doors open up, and he walks out. He's wearing his white doctor's coat over his all black everything else.
Yeah. His outfits are really, really upsetting to me. They're really upsetting.
They're upsetting?
Yeah, and I'll bring up the one that's really upsetting to me later on.
Okay.
You probably know. But yeah.
Okay. And so he comes in kind of doing his little like exposition about being the best doctor in the hospital, and I'm too overworked and I don't get paid enough money. And
Yep.
he goes in. He's like, "Oh, I've been called in because some tart bunked her noggin or something like that." And just obviously right away he's just like very sexist and very elitist, and he's very like, I'm the biggest dick in town. And so he goes in to the room with Sanchez and our female lead. I'm gonna look up the character's name because for some reason I can't remember it. I need to look up the character's name because it's gonna book me.
Madeline Wool.
Madeline Wool, is that the character's name or the actress's name?
The character's name.
Characters, okay, Madeline. So yes, Dr. Madeline.
No, so that's the actress who plays. So it's a show within a show. So that's
right.
Madeline Wool is the actor in the show, but then Dr. Liz Asher is
Dr. Liz Asher. Oh my God, this is so yeah. So everybody in this show has we have the actual actor playing them. Then they have the actor they're playing in the show, and then the character that they're playing in the show.
It's something to keep up with.
It is really.
Yeah.
The fake, oh, that's right, I forgot to mention the fake titles at the beginning when it's panning through the hospital before we meet Dr. Liz Asher, and it says, doing through the credits, all the fake credits, and then it says music by Harry Martinez, and then it says based on tunes whistled by Garth Marenghi.
I missed that. That's good.
And he wrote it and he directed it, and Garth Marenghi wrote and directed this, and produced by Dean Lerner and everything else. And it's just the fake titles at the beginning are so funny.
Damn, a proto Tommy Wiseau.
Exactly.
Wonderful.
Really.
Yeah. Predicted the room
really.
Before the room.
Pretty much. This is the room of the room. Didn't take itself seriously.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, man.
So he goes in, Dr. Douglas goes into the room to meet Dr. Asher and Dr. Sanchez.
Mm-hmm.
And, Dr. Asher, because she now works there, even though she is now a doctor in all full capacity.
No problem.
They give her a job,
Same
even
day.
though she had a psychic vision and collapsed immediately afterwards. So he goes in to meet her, and he's very skeptical, and he doesn't think that she's actually psychic. And even though she reads his mind, and then he's like, "Are you really psychic?" She says, "Yes, watch this." She closes her eyes, opens her eyes, and her pupils and everything are just pure black. And then she closes them again, opens them again, her eyes are back to normal. And he says, "Wow, nice trick, but don't do that out there on the floor."
You gotta have a bedside manner.
Yeah, gotta have a bedside manner.
Oh, man. Her curse is dark. Her curse
is dark.
Really dark.
Yeah.
I think we missed Garth Marenghi in the kid's bedroom. That's inexplicably in the middle of
that's
the
just
the
before,
hospital.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
Right.
inexplicably in the children's hospital, which I noted and I thought was especially strange. Like, why is this kid in his pajamas in a fully furnished bedroom with a whole bunch of toys? Like,
Yeah.
this hospital exists within, like, some sort of MC Escher type, like, functional kind of universe. Like, it's got so many things going on. Like, Garth Marenghi acts as like a police officer and like a manager, but he's not the boss. But it's confusing.
They say he does security, surgery, and general admin is what they say about him.
Like, that's a very confusing corporate structure.
Yeah,
that doesn't sound like it's very effective.
Every doctor walks around doing whatever they need to do and pack and heat the whole time.
Exactly. So they have they're introduced and they're talking about
actually quickly about this scene with the kid in the bedroom, because it's so good. Like, he goes in, he talks to this kid quickly before he gets called in, but he stops to do this first because he loves kids. And he goes in, he's like, the kid's like, "Is my dad gonna be all right?" "I don't know. I'm not Jesus Christ. I've made peace with that." And just sort of like talks himself up, and the kid's like, "I hope my dad doesn't die." "Oh, Dr. Douglas, you work too hard. They don't pay you enough." They say this multiple times, like, "You don't get paid enough." He's like, "I know. I do this because I'm a good person."
He's constantly looking for a way to get a raise.
Yeah, exactly. Every single character refers to him as basically like just an absolute savior.
And totally underappreciated, even though every single person in the hospital reveres and loves him so much.
Reveres and respects him to the nth degree.
Like, licks his boots all day long.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Just leading into the sheer god complex of this character of Garth Marenghi.
The power fantasy stuff. Gotta love it.
So he talks to the kid, and then he leaves, gives him a nice little salute on the way out, takes off. And then they meet and they talk and about her psychic vision, and her bonk on the noggin. And I think is that there's really not much else. Oh yeah, right. They're chatting, and he's like, okay. Oh, Sanchez is like, oh, so you've seen either something in the past happened, is currently happening, or is going to happen. And she says, yes, that's the gist of my powers. Yes.
And we're also introduced to the Dean Lerner's character.
That's after this, I think. That's just after this scene.
Okay, I thought that they met each other in his office, but I could be mistaken.
That's right after this.
That's right after this. Okay.
They're talking, and he's like, okay, can you remember any specifics about your vision, about like what horrible thing is about to happen in the hospital? And she said, yes, I saw the room 213. And he's like, oh, that's my friend's room, is his doctor friend from a long time ago. And they're like, what happened between you and this Wilbur customer?
Your Sanchez voice is really on point. I love
him. He's my favorite character. So he's like, okay, fine, I'll tell you. And we do a flashback, and he's explaining that he had this friend who used to be his best friend, this doctor in the hospital, and they got into the occult so they could better save lives. They wanted to learn how to do dark magic so that they could save people's lives. And they tried to open up a portal to hell in the break room or in the cafeteria.
Oh, man.
So they could talk to demons and get magical powers.
Obviously, this dude has never played Final Fantasy, because he would know that black mages are the offensive type and white mages are the healers. You got to go with the holy occult stuff. You can't go with the doom.
That's
devil,
right.
Satan stuff.
They really missed the boat on this one. They really missed an opportunity.
If they had only played Final Fantasy, that's all I got.
Right?
To say.
All of this could have been avoided. The rest of the show could have been avoided.
Yeah, show's done. Wrap it up, guys. We're good. Oh, fuck.
So it goes back. You see the friend, and he's like, okay, and we were doing the ritual, and then I went to get us some milkshakes, and when I returned, my friend had gone mad. And you see him like possessed, and he's like freaking out. And it cuts to Garth, and he's holding milkshakes, and he's like, ah. and then it cuts back, and he's like, anyway, so he went crazy and he stopped being a doctor, but now he's back because he's sick and he's in that room. And that's the exposition for this whole sequence.
And they put him back in the room with the portal to hell inexplicably.
Yes. He is the portal to hell.
He is the portal to hell.
The doctor is the portal to hell.
Oh,
it's contained within him. Right?
And I love how like Jacob's laddery everything is. Like,
oh my god.
Everything is really it's all practical effects, but it's all very effective, and it's fun.
Oh,
it's very fun.
It's so fun.
A lot of screaming, a lot of just like absent screaming.
So much just like something's happening and then a character going like ah for like 5 minutes, and then we jump back like nothing happened.
Yep.
It's I think about like Troll 2. Like every scene is Troll 2. Like, they're eating her and then they're gonna eat me. Oh my god. Like that's every single scene in this is just that over and over and over again.
That guy, oh man, he does not get enough credit. He should be making so many royalties off of those memes. His whole life is ruined by that one phrase, by that
I
one
wish.
line.
That and Garbage Day. Those are like, everyone. If those guys got royalties for them, they'd be millionaires.
Nilbog is goblin spelled backwards.
So good.
So good.
I guess yeah, if anybody's familiar with what we're referencing, that is the thing that this show is parodying. Like that style of film is exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So he goes into the room.
Yes.
Garth goes into the room to check on his friend.
Check on his friend who's in the room. But first, it's him and Sanchez outside, and Sanchez is like, we're buddies, but if you want to be friends with him, I won't stand in your way. And Dr. Daggis is like, oh no, I've already got Buddy Sanch. Why don't you hang back on this one? And they do like a weird little handshake.
Yeah,
and Sanchez
have a good handshake.
bolts down the hallway. He just takes off.
He's got some purpose in his step for sure.
He's got some purpose in his step for sure.
Yeah.
Garth goes into the room with his friend. He sees him standing there, and he's like, are you okay? And then the guy goes, ah! And he explodes. Just erupts in gore all over this room.
And this is like well done but sort of like on purpose not well done, but it's also
Yeah.
really well done practical special effects. Like they have a dummy that it seems like they filled with legitimate meat and actually
Yeah.
blew up. Like this
Yeah.
seems like a legitimate explosion that they did with a proper pyrotechnics crew.
Yeah, they absolutely did.
I was really impressed by this. I remember it being like pretty violent and like pretty just like gory and practical effecty, but I
Yeah.
thought that if I were to rewatch it now that it would kind of not hold up. But holy shit, practical effects, nothing holds up better, man. Really,
No,
nothing
I tell
holds
ya.
up better. And there was only one CGI shot that I actually noticed. Only one, and I'm pretty sure it was when a bit later on, like at the end
Okay.
of this scene, I think. But I mean, one little CGI scene within a whole like slew of practical effects. That's fine. It's not George Lucas stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah. So he explodes in this
He
horrible,
explodes.
gory mess. Looks like Fallout New
Oh, wait.
Vegas.
Hang on, no, did we? Oh fuck! Right, no, we did miss the scene with Dean.
Oh, we missed a scene with Dean.
We did miss the introduction to Dean Lerner.
I think that like his introduction is essentially just like they have the interview talking about how Dean he had never acted before.
Yeah.
And he understood that he wasn't a good actor, but he went and he did it anyway, and he did a fantastic job. But
yes, in the interview he says, I'm not an actor. And he says, I don't want you to act. I want you to tell the truth. And he says, okay, well, so that's what you're about to see, is me, Dean Lerner, not acting, but telling the truth. And it cuts to him looking straight into the camera going, what are you doing, Garth? I mean, what are you doing, fucking Rick? You're what's going on? And he's just screaming into the camera.
Yeah,
it's so perfect.
his emotions
it's so funny.
are so deadpan, and they're always fucking hilarious. Every time he's in a scene, the shot continuity is completely off. Like he'll be holding a shovel in one shot, and then it'll cut, and then he won't be holding a shovel, or like I think vice versa actually happens.
Yeah.
But
It's very funny.
it's a lot. It's a lot. He's constantly forgetting his lines, but Garth
Constantly.
Marenghi isn't ditching the whole take. He's taking like half of a take and stitching it together with another half of a take, because obviously he wasn't able to actually do it in totality properly.
There are no scenes with Dean where he got through the whole scene once without breaking or doing something fucked up.
Horrible cut or something like that. Like they notice like he's looking the wrong way, or he has his hand like in a weird place.
He's
or
constantly
something like
looking into the camera.
and it's just like glances. It's like somebody looking over at their mom to make like while they're off at a soccer game, like looking to see if they're doing okay. Like
Yeah. Every character in the show has some kind of great bit attached to them.
Oh yeah.
Like Sanchez, all of his stuff is dubbed over and incredibly overacted. Dean is just constantly playing with continuity because he can't know his lines. Dr. Asher, like she is constantly like psychically reading everybody's minds and like getting exposition that way and like jumping around and screaming incoherently.
She acts as kind of like the tropey like female in most modern or most like media
in most
of that
films
time.
of the time.
Yeah, just like kind of useless, like pretty, like is driving the plot by like her own plot devices, but she's not necessarily affecting things.
Yes,
because
she doesn't actually have any change.
Yeah, because like a woman's opinion is less important than a man's, apparently, like that sort of thing. So I feel like that's kind of reflexive. Everything in this show screams to me that they knew exactly what they were doing. And every single frame of this show was fucking intentional, because they probably had no money at all. Like this is probably made on a shoestring, like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia pilot budget.
But I think just like It's Always Sunny, like you can tell this feels like a labor of love through and through.
Oh, big time.
Everybody on this cast and crew was super passionate about making this weird thing that they thought maybe only they would think is funny.
Yeah,
you know
like
what I mean?
A couple of comedy nerds are gonna discover it like 15 years later or whatever.
Exactly.
But it's a fucking great show. I'm a big fan of it.
Huge fan.
Yeah, so that covers the introduction for
So we
for Lerner.
we meet Dean. Yeah, we meet Dean. They do the little fake interview with him being like, "I'm not an actor," and then jump to him just kind of screaming at Rick and Sanchez, being like, "You got to get this under control. She's a psychic, and something terrible is going to happen in my hospital. And get to the bottom of it. I hope you don't fuck this up.
If you don't do this, my ass is grass." And he like slams the table like really, really kind of like purposefully, like you can. My ass is grass. It's good stuff. It's really good stuff.
Yeah. And then we jump straight to him going and to the friend who explodes. So we're good.
I'd like to just bring up one line that Garth says, and it's
Sure.
Keskala diff, and I thought that was so perfect that it's going to become a main phrase in my everyday lexicon. Keskala diff is just so perfect in so many ways. I can't even begin to describe how much I love it. So
what was the context in him saying that again?
I think it was like this lady is psychic, or like what, like we should look out for her or something like that, and he was like, Keskala diff, she's just a god or something like that, and it's just it was perfect. Anyway, I need to always remember that, and I need to record that in my mind.
I fully expect you to say that on the podcast multiple times as we go every episode.
Keskala diff.
Keskala diff.
So we're back in the room. We're back in the room, and we've got the man who has just exploded. And he is in quite a state. Quite a state.
So first he explodes. They have the dummy. The dummy just is obliterated. You see this like fake head bouncing around, and then it all stops. Like the action stops. We're just watching a room full of gore, and you hear Rick Daggis be like, "Are you okay?" And then it cuts.
You're right.
You're right. And then it cuts, and it's him going into the room. It's all just strewn about with gore and mess and guts, and you see the guy's head just sitting there in this pile of gore, but it's his real head, and he's like, "Rick, I'm hurt bad." And he's having a conversation with this guy's severed head sitting on a pile of muck on the ground.
It really hurts.
Yeah, he says, "It's okay. I'm gonna get you help. Give me a fucking nurse." He's like calling for a nurse, and the guy's like, "Okay, I'm gonna try to stop the bleeding." He says, "I'm gonna try to stop the bleeding," to his severed head, and the severed head's like, "Rick, I need you to put me out of my misery. Don't ask me to do that. It really hurts." And he's like, "God damn it!" So he grabs a shovel, a conveniently placed shovel in this medical suite.
Really dirty shovel too, I might add.
Dirty.
Yeah. Why is this dirty shovel in this hospital room? But
Nothing.
this is
Everything.
the time to ask questions.
No, everything is just convenient for the plot. Or I guess I don't know how a shovel would be convenient for the plot, but it's there because they needed to hit him with a shovel.
Yeah, they needed to put him out of his misery. That's the only thing that they could think of, I guess. Who knows?
Yeah. So he has this shovel, and he's like, he's just another scene of just him screaming, and then it cuts to the guy's severed head screaming, and then him screaming and crying, and then him screaming and crying, and then him screaming and crying, and then it goes in just super obnoxious slow motion of him knocking the head with the shovel, and the head bounces away it's like a styrofoam head.
Yeah.
And it bounces away, and then it cuts to him from the top, and the head bounces right back to his feet.
I think that might have been the CGI shot. I think that
the head, really?
the only CGI shot. Yeah, the head.
I thought they should have a practical, like a dummy head, and then just bounce back.
I don't know. Maybe
Right?
it just looked CGI to me. Maybe
Okay.
I could be wrong. Obviously, I wasn't there. I have no idea. But I
I wasn't on the set. What do you? I don't have all the answers.
I have no idea. But it looked like it. It looked like it to me. But also,
Cool.
I thought that I'm notorious for thinking that things look like things when they aren't actually the thing. So, what the fuck do I know? So yeah,
I think we're splitting hairs over this severed head. I don't think it's really that important.
It's not imperative. It's not thetical to the point of the Garth Marenghi of the Darkplace.
Mm-hmm.
So we're pretty much like at the end of the episode at this point.
No, I think we're about maybe 3/4 through. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it cuts now to Oh, Sanchez comes in. He sees Garth holding the shovel and all the gore everywhere, and he says, "I'll get a mop." And then we cut to someone had put. Oh no, that's right. The next interview. This is the second set of interviews with Garth and Dean, and they're sitting there, and it starts with Dean going like, "No," it starts with Garth being like, "I've never exploded. I just know. I know what it would be like."
This is one of my favorite parts of the episode.
It's the best. He says, I've never exploded. I just know what it would be like to explode. And then it cuts to Dean and he says, I don't know who exploded in Garth's life. It could have been a friend, a family member, a dog. But you could tell that scene came from a place of pain. There were tears on set, not from Garth. He was strong for the crew, but I was crying the whole time we filmed that.
You got that like verbatim as well. I gotta applaud you for that.
Because it was so good. I was like, this is fucking perfect. This is hilarious.
Yeah, well, I remember it viscerally. I that's why I know that's verbatim. It was a fucking hilarious little bit because the explosion was really well done. The only thing I can compare it to... where are you in The Office? Have you continued watching it?
I am on season. I'm halfway through season 3. I'm just on the wedding, Phyllis's wedding.
So you're
it hasn't happened yet.
You haven't hit what I'm about to say yet, but it's not a spoiler. Michael Maeve's a movie at some point, and
Threat Level Midnight.
Threat Level Midnight, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And there's a scene in it where Toby gets killed by the villain Golden Face, and joke spoiler, there is a mannequin head that they explode like 35 times. Like it's just like 40 seconds to a minute of just Toby's head exploding and it's mannequins.
Right.
And it's like he really wanted it to be the best scene. And they go to like a talking head and it's like, oh, by and large, the Toby's death scene was the most expensive shot in the whole thing. Like you could tell because they get like worse and worse as they go on. Like it's just really good. Anyway, it reminded me of that, like the kind of intimacy with that kind of like overdone, like over edited kind of explosion thing. I really like the explosion in this episode.
It was a solid explosion.
Very solid explosion. I will say that. So we are at the interview part. We just
the interview, and then it cuts to we're back in the hospital. They have police tape up over the door of the room where the guy blew up. And then Dean comes over with the shovel and he's arguing with Garth and the rest of the cast, saying like, "You use this to treat him? What do you think's going on around here? This is a hospital." And he's like holding the shovel and like yelling at him. And then they're arguing and he's like, "Listen, I don't know what happened, but he exploded, and that means that the portal to hell inside of him is open. And now we've got to find a way to close it before this damn hospital goes to hell." And then we cuts to Dean again, and he's got a cup in his hand instead of the shovel. And then, like you were saying, it like cuts really abruptly back to him holding the shovel again, and they do that back to the cup again at the end when he crushes the cup because he's mad. Constantly jumping around with the. Right?
They put the cup back in at the end.
They put the cup back in the end so he could crush the cup because he's pissed off.
And he does the cup crush so well, like it's just like completely emotionless, totally deadpan. It's fucking brilliant. I love that. So I think he also, after he hits his friend in the head with the shovel, he says "bye bye buddy" in a really I love that again. Like another thing that he says, just "bye bye buddy." I need to have that sound effect on my phone for whatever use
I'm going to put it into my Twitch stream.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm going to cut it and put it into my Twitch stream.
"Bye bye buddy" as a exclamation point, bye bye.
Exactly.
So I think we have what's next? My notes got kind of sparse at the end.
The cemetery is next.
The cemetery is next. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Dean, they have an argument. And he says, like, okay, well, we should deal with the aftermath of this. And so it jumps to Garth driving to the cemetery in a giant cardboard car.
The car is great, yeah.
It's very obviously fake.
It looks like Knight Rider, though. Like
it's so funny.
It's a cool car. I wish that it was a real car.
I know. It's just like it looks like just a giant cardboard car. Like it's so funny. So he's driving in his inner monologue, being like, "I have to get to the bottom of this. The demons. Some crazy stuff's going to start to happen if I don't fix things." So we get to the cemetery, and he shows up. We have a long shot of Garth walking into the cemetery, and I think he's wearing an outfit that you don't agree with.
Is
this the outfit?
Is this the bathrobe?
No. Oh, fuck.
Bathrobe.
Oh, that's way earlier.
Yeah, okay. I think I missed it. The bathrobe was the thing that it made me really uncomfortable. That guy's legs are I don't want to see that guy's legs.
I forgot that was way earlier when he first meets them, and she's like, "I'm a psychic," and he's like, "I need a shower," and then it cuts to him coming out of the shower in the bathroom. We missed that. Okay, cool.
Okay, but anyway, I forget what he's wearing in this scene specifically.
In the cemetery, he has the same all black outfit he's been wearing, but now he has a black leather jacket that's zipped up to the bottom of his tie and no higher.
I'm gonna bring up the image here because that is just an image that you need to have.
It's perfect. It's a great look. I would wear this.
I'm just switching over to the browser.
I would wear this look.
Here.
Yeah,
this look.
This is our first time doing this, I think, right?
Yeah, it is.
This is our first time doing some visual cues. I love that.
Yeah, look at that. Oh, you know what? It was on the wrong thing, so I'm gonna have to black that out. It was on the wrong monitor. So
that's embarrassing.
All good. It just popped up, like our Discord chat just popped up, so it's fine.
Okay.
It's actually fine. But Garth's fate or Garth's outfit here. I'm gonna do it still because we had already done that. That's what he's looking like. Now. It's horrible.
It's so good. I would wear this.
It also works. It works like crazy.
I would unironically wear that outfit.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like the duster in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. They're always fighting over the leather duster to look badass.
Yeah.
And,
who gets to wear the duster?
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna get buried in the duster. Mac and Charlie die, man. That's a great episode.
Yeah.
We have to cover more It's Always Sunny. I'm bummed out that we missed that we have that lost episode with It's Always Sunny. And I thought that was a great episode. But anyway.
Yeah. We'll definitely get back to it in the future for sure.
For sure. So we're at the funeral.
The funeral for the man who just exploded.
Yes, Mr. Explodey Man.
Mr. Explodey Man.
And he comes back to life. I think there's like some conversations that happen between Dean Lerner and Garth Marenghi. I can't really recall the details of them.
I think it's afterwards. Oh no, just
happens.
really briefly. Yeah. Really briefly, they're just sort of talking about like, I'm sorry I snapped at you, and like, we have to figure out what's going on and stuff like that. And then we cut to the priest in the hospital. And he's standing over the body and he's saying some prayers, and he starts going off on like a very funny tangent that now I can't remember. I was going to reference it, but he just starts talking about like, God. Oh yeah, that's right. God works in mysterious ways. Sometimes he comes at us from above, below, sideways, on an angle. Sometimes he comes at us when we're in the shower. Sometimes he comes at us when we're brushing our teeth. The Lord's mysterious is what I'm trying to say. And then while he's saying this, the wooden casket that they're going to bury him in, it starts to shake and kind of rumble. And everyone's like, what's going on? What's going on? And the casket bursts open, and the guy is now back together again. You can see he has like sewn marks, like stitches all around his limbs.
Yep.
Where they've put him back together like Frankenstein's monster, and he's running, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, he's alive! He's a zombie! Jesus Christ!" And everyone starts to take off, and then Rick immediately pulls out a giant 44 Magnum revolver from his waistband and just starts like going to town. Oh no! First, the guy's mom comes over and she's like, "No, my baby, he's alive again." And she's like in front of him, and he's like, "Get out of my way." She's like, "Don't shoot my son." And he shoots her in the shoulder to get her out of the way.
Yep.
And then just unloads on this fucking zombie corpse that's flailing around in the box. Actually, shoots him like 40 times.
I'm gonna bring up this scene here.
And goes to town on this zombie demon corpse.
Oh man. And he kills him. He's dead.
He kills him again.
He's dead. He's
dead. Part
dead.
2.
That's a double tap. That's a double tap right there. So we have no more of his old buddy. And so
old buddy is burnt to a crisp.
Bye, buddy. Bye,
buddy.
Bye.
And then so afterwards we have Garth. He's standing there looking pensively into the distance. There's now police tape around, like a police tape line around the burnt body in the cemetery.
Yep.
And Dean comes over and he's like, well, Rick was right. I should go tell him that. And he goes over and he's like, oh, well, I'm sorry, Rick. We'll get to the bottom of this. How are you holding up? And Rick says, I need some fresh air, despite being outside in a cemetery. And he walks off, and Dr. Asher comes over. She's like, Rick, wait. He's like, he doesn't say anything. So then she just immediately turns to Dean and like grips him like in a very dramatic like embrace, and he holds her, and then immediately goes down and just squeezes her butt very hard.
Yeah, like a complete. It's so overt. It's so overt.
Yeah, so overt, and just holds it there for like 5 seconds as the camera pans away.
Sexual assault is not good, and
No.
and he should not be feeling too good about himself for doing that. All I'll say.
You can tell like at every point, like every single moment in this is so meticulously considered.
Yeah.
And it's so deep and layered because like you have the creators trying to get into the minds of these like, fake actors that they're playing, and like how that plays in. Like the layers of this show are just insane.
Like you would have
right?
had to characterize yourself for a long time before this. Like you would have had to be thinking about the character of Garth Marenghi and Dean Lerner and all these characters a lot. Like you would have to write down a whole shitload, have a whole character sheet, like maybe act like them for the day and like in society or some shit, do some method acting stuff. I wonder if this was a method acting piece, because if so, that would make Garth like completely intolerable. Like, that would be a horrible onset experience.
I don't know. I don't think so. It definitely has a jovial, fun atmosphere to the set. Like you can tell that these folks are just having a great time, right?
Yeah.
But like, yeah, all the rampant sexism and everything, like it's just like so specifically, it's there on purpose to make fun of that, or to satirize the fact that like like this is this actor, this producer trying to act as this character, and in that moment he's like, okay, well, we have a hug scene, so I'm gonna grab her tush. Like that's like the layers of it are insane.
Yeah, it's like Onion.
Yeah,
it's like an
exactly.
Onion. Yeah,
it is like an onion.
It's
got
beautiful.
Lots of layers.
It's a great series.
Yeah.
It's a really it's a fun series to be
such
analyzing.
a good series. And I think the only thing left is the last scene of this is Rick on top of he's on the roof of the hospital.
Doors. Like he just repeats all like doors like 18 times. Like,
yeah, he's says, oh, the doors to hell have been opened. Oh sure, the doors are open, not to the hospital. Those doors are closed unless you open them because you need to care. But the doors to hell, those are the doors I mean. They're open. And then he walks off the roof, and he basically sets up that the rest of the show, crazy ghouls and goblins and monsters are going to be showing up and attacking everybody.
Yeah, and if you watch the rest of the series, you will know that a lot more crazy shit happens. I think way crazier than what happens in the first episode.
This is the tamest episode.
Yeah, by a decent margin as well. And that says something. I think that says a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I want to compliment the set design of the roof.
Oh,
it's really just it's like one of those things where it's low budget and it looks like the roof in Friends or the roof in like How I Met Your Mother or something, or even like something back in the day like the Westfall like hospital series or ER and that sort of thing. It gives off a really like good vibe, and it's just impressive that they were able to take the budget that they were given and create that set, create all of these sets that aren't like, they're not like the prettiest in the world, but they're functional. They're completely functional, and they're believable. I don't think that it's set on location anywhere because it's impossible.
No,
to film
I
in a
think
hospital.
I think this is entirely a set that they built.
Yeah,
everything about it, and it's all very good.
Yeah, it's really impressive how they were able to do it on like, is it Sky? I think it's Sky Network, the Sky Network.
I think I'm not sure.
I know the
off top of my head.
BBC is notoriously bad for funding stuff. Like they'll underfund stuff, they'll cut funding like midway through a production, like that sort of thing.
Right.
So I don't know how Sky or Channel 4 is in Britain, but I wonder if they had gone through some like budget issues or something like that at some point. Just general production questions, though. I'd be really interested to see an actual documentary about it, not a mockumentary about like the production of it and everything. Kind of.
That's fair.
It's like a room, like The Room on purpose, a little bit.
Yeah,
it gives
exactly.
me the same effect.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's Garth Marenghi's Darkplace, episode 1.
That's the first episode of Garth Marenghi's Darkplace. Yeah.
Episode 1. We both enjoyed it. This is something that we both love, this show. Again, this was a kind of formative experience for Sam and I's friendship being born. Like when somebody shows me something that makes me cry laughing, you know that I'm going to keep that person in my life for sure. For sure.
That's the bar.
Yeah, that's the bar. That's absolutely the bar. It was a good way for us to kind of build our friendship, and I'm excited to watch the rest of it now and go through all that nostalgia again, because now that I've watched the first episode, I'm kind of on the take now. I'm kind of
right.
I'm kind of in the mood for some Garth Marenghi.
If anybody listening hasn't seen it before, I truly think that when you watch it, you will be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. It is very weird, and it is very like, what the fuck's going on? But like going in, if you know, like, okay, this is like a weird satire. It's like this kind of absurdist comedy. I don't know how you could not have a good time watching it. Honestly.
Like if you don't like absurdist comedy, don't watch it. Just don't watch it, because you're not gonna like it. We both like absurdist comedy. Both really like it. So I feel like it's way up our alley. I don't know specifically how popular or how well it was received. I feel like it's like a very like not well known thing, and it's kind of like a comedy nerd kind of thing at this point.
It gets a little bigger every year, I think, but I don't know. I don't really see it referenced too much anymore.
No.
It was around 2010, like around the time we found it. It was sort of like becoming a little bit more popular, but even now to this day, it's still very much like a cult hit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like even on IMDb, it's only got like 500 reviews or something like that.
That's odd.
It's got like an 8.7 rating, but it's only based on like 500 reviews or something like that.
I should
and,
review it. I should put
I'm very surprised.
Get some reviews going for my lesser known favorite TV shows.
Right.
Okay, man. So we will do a transition. We'll take a 5-10 minute break.
Yeah.
We'll come back with Spaced, episode 1, which I'm very excited about. All right.
Me too.
Transition. And we are back.
Welcome back, everybody.
Back with Spaced.
I hope you enjoyed your break. I hope you enjoyed our ad for Insurgency Sandstorm with their new night vision update just recently released on Steam. Thank you to New World Interactive for sponsoring our podcast.
We should, until we get sponsors, we should use the time in between to just plug a game that we really love.
I actually would love that.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
Like, I've been playing Dead Cells. It's awesome. Go buy it. That's exactly what I would do. That. Dead Cells is awesome. Yeah, okay.
That's if I could do that. That would be very funny.
Put that on the list. So today we've got Spaced. Spaced is a strange show to kind of broach because it exists within a much larger universe, and that universe is never really expanded upon, but it exists within a litany of other stuff made by Edgar Wright. And Edgar Wright is a British director. I'm just going to bring up the wiki page for Spaced right now just to get all the actors' names and everything.
This is definitely your your pick for the week, because I don't know anything about the universe of Space outside of like the couple episodes of the show that I've watched and Edgar Wright's work post Spaced.
Yeah.
Like I don't know anything about the rest of this, so this is definitely going to be your time to go on a rant like I was with Garth Marenghi's Darkplace.
I'm happy to do it. So with this show, it exists within the universe of Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and At World's End, I think is the name of the movie.
The Cornetto trilogy.
Yeah, the Cornetto trilogy, which I think is one of the most genius pieces of film in comedy ever. I think it's such a clever idea, and they execute it really well. It's like my favorite ensemble cast ever. Everybody's great in it, and they kind of started that whole trend with this show. They started it off. Edgar Wright was just like right out of film school, I think. Him and Simon Pegg were close friends, and there was kind of like a comedy circle that was going around, as far as I know, with like Nick Frost, Daisy, Jessica Stevenson's character, and Mark Heap, Julia Deakin, and Katie Carmichael.
I actually know this because of an interview with Simon Pegg that Nick Frost wasn't actually originally going to be in the show. Him and Simon Pegg were roommates at the time, and he would always make Simon Pegg laugh with his characters and his impressions, and that's what convinced Edgar to cast him as Mike in the show.
I didn't know that. That's hilarious. That makes sense.
He was like a waiter at the time. Like, he was the server. He wasn't even an actor.
Well, and he's the best. He's the best character in the series, as far as I can tell. Like, he's my favorite. He's my favorite for sure. All of his hijinks is just so crazy and weird. Like, I guess this is a not really a spoiler, but like a bit of character development. Just to give you an idea of Nick Frost's character, he storms the Paris Disneyland with a tank that he stole from the Army Reserves place that he works at, or that he's stationed at. So that's the kind of person that Nick Frost's character plays, and I think that he's the best. And the show, it doesn't explicitly exist within the same universe outside of one main connection. It's more an ensemble cast, but it's considered within the same universe. And there's one character later on in Spaced. God, I can't remember his name. He makes beats with like noises that are around the apartment. So like a toast thing goes off, and he starts like jamming up to the toast. Anyway, he shows up in Shaun of the Dead as a zombie with the same outfit that he would have on, because he's a bike messenger, and he has a bike messenger's outfit on. So that's the main connection. That's the strongest connection as well. But it obviously all comes from the same comedic place, and with all of the same timing, the same sort of writing, the same sort of kind of like heart that's buried underneath a lot of like kind of crude lines that are said by people who are obviously emotionally ill-equipped adults.
Yes.
And it's fantastic. And I guess Spaced, if we want to start off like, you know what? I'm going to give a little primer to why I love this show so much. So it was back when I was like 12, and it was in England. It was my third time in England at that point, and we were staying over at our cousin's house, and it was in like Derby, and Derby is Midlands, so it's like heavy rain country, like a lot of rain always. And we had gone during Wimbledon, so there's like this kind of colloquial joke in England that if you go to England during Wimbledon, you're gonna get fucked, because it always rains on Wimbledon, always, no matter what, no matter how much stuff that they put into it to deter the rains or the rain's effect, it always ends up screwing up Wimbledon for some reason. But anyway, it was raining like crazy, and we couldn't do anything. We were supposed to go off to Scotland, and we couldn't go because it was raining like crazy. So I remember there was a weekend where it was just raining straight, like no stops at all. And I had stayed up until like 3 a.m. watching the first season that I had found. I had watched the first episode with my folks earlier in the day, and they were like, "Oh, this is a funny show. I like this, blah, blah, blah." I thought it was the funniest thing that I had ever seen in my entire life. I thought, I don't know what clicked, but it was just like the writing was sharp. Everything felt like it was made for me. I don't know. It was cool. And I remember I was in a room, like this house was supposedly haunted, and I had weird experiences there before, so I couldn't really sleep. I was like 12 years old, so, like believe in ghosts, that sort of thing.
Yeah, ghosts everywhere. Yeah.
Ghosts everywhere. Yeah, exactly. Especially in England. And they had like
with the origin of ghosts.
Yeah, exactly.
The birthplace of ghosts.
They had psychics come through the place too, and like a medium, and they had said like there's 5 ghosts in here. And my cousin had seen like a ghost, but I'm pretty sure it was just sleep paralysis. And like, there's a whole bunch of weird stuff that I don't need to go into for very long.
Sure.
But anyway, I had gotten up because I couldn't sleep, and I was like, oh, I'll just watch Spaced. So I get up and I pop the DVD in the player, and I'm watching, like, I watch all of the episodes, and I just think it's the funniest thing ever. And I remember it was this just giant great room, because this lady that we were staying, the house that we were staying at, rich AF, like very
Okay.
rich, has a huge mansion with like a pasture, like not a field, a pasture, where they like ride ATVs and shit. It's wild over there. And it was just like torrential downpouring, thunder, rain, everything, and you could hear it. There was like the rainy mood in the background, and I was watching this show, and it was completely dark out. But like the faint glow of the CRT TV with the DVD of Space going. I don't know, man. It holds a very special place in my heart, and that was kind of one of the first shows wherein I saw a queer character. And he wasn't explicitly queer, but he was just a guy that nobody really understood his sexuality. And I was kind of figuring myself out at that point. The character is Brian.
Yeah, I figured. I was like, okay, I know about Brian, but I don't know if there's another character on top of that.
No, it was Brian, and it was
Yeah.
kind of the first portrayal of a queer person that wasn't like explicitly showing, and explicitly like over effeminate and that sort of thing, just to kind of prove a point about him being gay. And
it wasn't stereotypical specifically to serve some kind of check for the producers of the show.
Yeah, or like a narrative purpose of some kind. It was
Right.
just, he was there, and his character was like queer, and you couldn't really understand his character, but it was okay because you liked him anyway. And that was kind of like a revelatory experience within my own like queer self-discovery. And I always thought that like that's one of the reasons why this show holds like such a deep place in my heart. It's like with Nier, like with my
Yeah,
boy,
for sure.
with my boy Emil. Emil is gay. Emil is gay, but it's never mentioned. It's mentioned in one line. One line specifically implies that Emil is attracted to Brother Nier, in Nier Replicant, not the Western version where it was a dad. It's like the Japanese version where it's like a 16-year-old boy or whatever.
Right.
But he implies that he's in love with him, and that's the only indication that he's gay. It's being confirmed by Yoko Taro that he is gay, but it's not a main part of his character. It's just who he is. It's just, these people exist. We're not passing judgment. It's just this guy exists. And I love that kind of objective queer representation where it's not stilted to be the kind of glee stereotype, which I really don't identify with, at least. So yeah, I guess that's it means a lot to me in summary, essentially.
Yeah, totally.
I
see what you mean about earlier when you said I'm going to get nostalgic when we start talking about Spaced. I see what you mean.
Yeah, it's a real connection to the show. The only other thing that I can really think of that compares to it is The Sopranos, just in my own like headcanon as to my own cultural and philosophical development.
Sure.
I really love the show. So I guess we could go right into the plot here.
Sure. Yeah.
Not much more preamble we can do. It's it's a great show. It's 2 seasons long. I guess we can go through the cast real quick.
14 episodes. Created in 1999.
Classic British TV show. Only lasting 14 episodes.
Yeah, 2 seasons. Yeah, 7 episodes apiece.
Yep, and we've got Simon Pegg, Jessica Stevenson, Nick Frost, Mark Heap, Julia Deakin, and Katie Carmichael as the main leads.
Yeah, directed by Edgar Wright and written by Simon Pegg and Jessica Hines. Jessica, what's
Stevenson.
her name? Jessica Stevenson. Okay.
Jessica Stevenson. Yeah, which is interesting. Like, it wasn't really written by Edgar. Some of it was written by him. He wrote, I think, 2 or 3 episodes later on in the series. But most of it is written by Simon Pegg and Jessica Stevenson, which is really impressive because it's fucking really sharply written and it's really funny.
Yeah.
And I guess it starts off with Daisy and Tim seemingly interacting with each other. And
it starts up with I wrote this. It starts with a breakup, and I put breakup in quotation marks. I said breakup, I guess.
Yeah, seemingly
It's such
what
a strange.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Tim is begging what seems to be Daisy to take him back and to not leave him. Oh, who are you with? Oh, are you going with that guy? Oh, I hate that guy. That sort of thing. Whereas Jessica Stevenson's character Daisy is in the window, and she's essentially saying, "Oh, I don't think it's working anymore. We should probably end it." Blah blah blah. And it's kind of revealed in a pretty artful way that Jessica Stevenson was actually talking to what appears to be a homeless man, and Simon Pegg is talking to his now ex-girlfriend Sarah, who he still loves a whole lot, and will be a main theme throughout the first season, no doubt. So they break up. Daisy throws a bunch of change at the homeless guy a floor below. It's pretty heavily implied that Daisy has been living precariously and dangerously for a very long time. We're not really given any information about the characters either for a while. And after like a little bit of just kind of B-roll shots of them kind of walking around the city, they finally get to a cafe wherein Tim is sitting down at a table reading his comic or his newspaper, and Daisy sits down, asks him to take this free seat, and starts looking through the paper for new places. And it kind of has this fun little musical sequence, like Getting to Know You is playing.
Yeah.
Getting to know you. And it's kind of a montage of them laughing and
they keep meeting in the same spot for multiple days. They keep meeting in the same cafe and chatting and getting to become friends and stuff.
Yeah. And Simon Pegg shows up at one point in his Fantasy Bazaar flyer handing out outfit, which is this horrible like green goblin alien type thing.
Yeah,
it's
this monster costume.
Horrifying. It's a horrifying costume. And there's a scene just before this where Tim is kind of asking like Daisy, like, what do you do? Like, where do you live? And Daisy tries to explain it, but she's so inarticulate that she can't really explain it. Yeah. And he's like, get to the end of the story. And she's like, well, I need a new flat. And he's like, oh, cool. And then the getting to know you part is going. But I thought that was a really fun way to avoid telling somebody's backstory in a really contrite way, or in a really trite way, rather. Like usually like, oh, what do you do? 5-10 minutes of exposition about this person's backstory. And then you zoom back and it's like, okay, I guess I was watching an episode of One Piece. But yeah, I like this. I like this scene. I like how the show introduces itself and does it in a non, like extrapolating, way too much and kind of sniffing its own farts.
Yeah, it's pretty quick. The beginning of this is pretty tight.
Yeah, and I think like one of the cool things is it's almost presented like a French New Wave film, and that the douche meter just fucking went right through went right through the top there. But like you're presented with these characters, so they have no history, they have no parents, they're kind of like both completely lost within the world. They don't really know where they're going or what to do, so they kind of end up teaming up because they find a house, or Daisy eventually finds a house after breaking down in the last segment, which is my favorite. I love how she breaks down. Like they have they have this musical montage, and all of a sudden I can't do this anymore. Every day is the same, and every day is getting worse and worse. And it's wonderful. Horribly embarrassing for anybody in the cafe, for sure.
But also a great way to subvert the montage they had literally just been playing. It was very, very clever.
It's startling.
Very funny. And she starts to cry, and then immediately he's like, "Oh, hang on now. This is weird. I'm sad too, but you don't see me cry." And he immediately starts to cry too. And they kind of cry to the beat a little bit, where they're just kind of taking turns. Where she's like, and he's like, It's very funny. It's very I noticed this almost right away. I specifically made this note about the montage immediately after this,
Mhm.
but just how you can really see the groundwork for Edgar Wright's sort of signature visual and musical storytelling style evident in Space, like right away.
Yeah,
like
it's great.
If you're familiar with him at all, like if you are familiar with Shaun of the Dead and Scott Pilgrim and Baby Driver and Hot Fuzz and all that stuff, like you know his style, and you can see the bones of it taking shape here.
Yeah, the cogs.
It's very good. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's cool to see, especially as a fan of it's such a big fan of Shaun of the Dead and all that kind of stuff. Like I watched Shaun of the Dead actually at the same time, like in the same probably period of a week that I watched Space for the first time as well.
Nice.
I had no idea the two were connected, which was a pleasant surprise actually.
Right.
So yeah, I really agree. I like how they did the montage and all that stuff. So they're looking through the newspaper after crying, and Daisy comes across one ad that requires a couple to be renting out the apartment.
Yeah, it's it's a perfect place. It's exactly the kind of place that they were looking for, but it requires a professional couple to be living there.
Yep. So Tim suggests, well, just fake it. Find another homeless male friend that you have, and just fake it. And she goes, well, and he's like, do you have any homeless male friends that you could move in with there? And she's like, well, I have one. And there you go. There's the plot. There's the plot of the show.
There's the whole
They're
thing.
faking their couple status to the landlord,
so that they can stay there, and then just the rest of the show is them trying to keep this ruse alive, so that they can stay in the place. It's very cute. It's very clever.
Yeah, it's a classic sitcom kind of setup. Yeah, I can't say anything like overwhelmingly positive about it or underwhelmingly negative about it. Just it's a lukewarm plot. I think that it's fine. I think that it's the skeleton of the show for sure.
Yeah, it's where it really shines is in the comedy, the visual gags, and the supporting cast, who are all wonderful.
Exactly. And I'd like to note that this show is shot with one camera. It was shot with one camera. They might have expanded after the pilot, but the fact that they made this show to this level of quality with one camera in 1999 is really, really, really impressive.
Absolutely.
Really fucking impressive. The visual gags that they're able to pull off, they're like cutting from like conversations are happening. Like they're it's just not poorly done. Like a lot of the time you see with a single camera thing, like you see in a web series or something like that, they have like a huge establishing shot, and that's the only shot that a character has a conversation in. Whereas with here, they're zooming in, and it all feels natural. It doesn't feel like different takes. I don't know. I'm blown away by the fact that it's a single camera operation. Totally. It's like to the same level of impressiveness as Clerks, if not more, in my opinion. So they kind of they figure out that this is what they're going to have to do, but they have to do a lot of preparing to do so.
They have to sell themselves as a couple, as people who have known each other for years.
Exactly. Yeah. 3 years, 8 months, 2 days.
Was it 5?
Oh, 5 years. Yeah.
5 years, 8 months, and 3 days is what they say. Yeah.
You said that 2 days ago.
Yeah. That's a great bit.
Yeah. So they're going through the bios of each individual person, essentially.
And this is where the visual style of Edgar Wright really is like, oh, okay, this it looks just like a movie that he'll make later on. Yeah. As they go through the montage of like quick information of like, this feels like the opening to Hot Fuzz. Where they're talking about like Nicholas Angel's like compilation of his deeds and stuff like that.
Like how he was the best cop in London, and how
exactly
he was taking all of the arrests, so they had to put him into a county in like the middle of an English suburb.
Exactly.
I love that plot. That's a great fucking plot.
You're just too good. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that this is a great way to establish a character's animus and their just general backstory and everything, because you're like, you have to know everything to fake being in a relationship, so you're kind of learning about everything that's pertinent to that character. I thought that this was really well done.
I thought it was interesting though, because in that sequence where they are talking about each other's backstory and the facts and stuff, it's all very innocuous stuff. Like, it's nothing that's really important. It's nothing that is like a deep character revelation or anything like that. It's purely just like, honestly, nonsense, most of it.
Yeah, like Daisy is afraid of spiders and mice kind of thing.
Oh, yeah, I wrote that down because I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah.
Her worst fear is mouse spiders, an all-powerful race that will immobilize humans in webs in order to steal cheese. I thought that was fucking hilarious.
And the thing is, she doesn't say that at all. He says that. He makes that up. He combines that thought process because he's a comic book guy. He's like making his The Bear comic book. And I just thought that, like, the fact that the facts are so banal and kind of inconsequential adds to the characterization. Like, what's not being said is just as important as what's being said, I think.
Right.
So I guess we get a view into who Tim is. He's allergic to bananas. So he doesn't remember the Christmas of 1987. And he also doesn't remember the Christmas of 1994. Daisy asks him, "Why don't you remember that?" And he says, "Don't know, can't remember." She says, "Okay, yeah, makes sense." Love that little bit. And he dreams of working for Dark Star Comics, writing and illustrating his comic The Bear, which is a pretty bad comic book, seemingly. Well drawn,
that we will get into later for sure.
Yeah, there's a really good bit involving his comic at some point. And currently he's an assistant manager at the Fantasy Bazaar Comics with owner Bilbo, who is also a really famous comedian who is really worth checking out. Bill Bailey. He's
I've heard of him, I think.
He's like a musical kind of guy. He's kind of like a British Bo Burnham. I think that's like a good way to describe him, as far as I could tell from his comedy. He's on like Nevermind the Buzzcocks and the Jeremy whatever show, like all of those kinds of like big cultural British shows. He's hilarious. He's definitely worth checking out, and he's great in this show as well, especially with the conflict about the Phantom Menace that comes up a bit later on. And his
that's a fun fact also about Peter Serafinowicz, because Peter Serafinowicz plays Duncan, the nemesis, Tim's nemesis in the show, he played Darth Maul in episode 1 of Phantom Menace.
Did he really?
Yeah.
That's really funny. That's really fucking funny. I did not know that. That's the whole. Like, you've seen a couple of episodes, right? Like,
I've seen a couple episodes of Spaced. I saw enough to know their conflict. I know about the Star Wars Episode 1 plot points, and just I noticed that Peter Serafinowicz is like the bad guy, and I'm like, oh fuck, well he's Darth Maul.
That's so funny. I did not know that. That's the kind of thing that's like buried, and you're kind of like, oh, who's Darth Maul? Like, nobody gives a shit who Darth Maul was. It's like, oh, it's that guy. That makes sense. And that guy's great in everything he's in. I always love him. Oh, he's
so good.
So he plays...
Mr. Wick, do enjoy your party.
Oh, yeah, he was in John Wick.
John Wick Chapter 2, yeah.
Yeah. He was in... he was playing... Or he's... In this show, he's playing his ex-friend, who's now dating his ex-lover, Sarah, much to his chagrin. And... Yeah, that's pretty much the basis of Tim's character as far as the explanation goes. And Daisy's bio, I thought was really funny. Graduated with bad marks in the humanities at her university.
She graduated with bad marks at a good college, so it's a moot point.
The only thing that counts is that you were there, she claims. And one of my favorite lines of the show, or of this episode rather, is... Michelle from EastEnders got a third, which a third is the grade, which I think is not good. I think like I imagine that would be like a 33% or something like that. And EastEnders,
the low third of students.
Yeah. And EastEnders, if anybody's not aware of shitty British TV culture, it's this incredibly long-running soap opera that's been going as long as any American soap opera. It's super ridiculous. It's like Coronation Street with slightly higher production values, but I love it. I grew up watching it. It's horrible, but it's a lot of fun.
I know you grew up watching a lot of British
Yeah. Lot.
fucking what's the word I'm looking for? Soap operas.
Just that actually. It was
Just that? Oh,
yeah.
I thought you also watched
EastEnders.
Coronation. Didn't your mom also love Coronation Street? Or
My mom watched Corey for a while. She watched it.
she calls it Corey. She's really close with
that's,
it.
No, that's what it's called. People.
I
call it,
I love it. I think that's
all
hilarious to
All
me.
the fans call it Corey.
You guys, did you catch Corey last night? I don't know why I hate that. But I do.
It's right to hate it because Coronation Street is bad. It's not good.
Yeah. I've like caught an episode or two in the past, and I was watching it, I was like, what is this? Oh, this is Coronation Street? This is what people are talking about? What the fuck?
Yeah, turn it right off. No thank you. EastEnders is fun though, because there's like murder plots, there's like Coronation Street is like, who cheated on the Duchess of Or? But I guess not that. It's more in a city.
Sure.
Sure. I don't give a shit about Corey. I don't know what Corey is. I'm not going to watch it. Never going to watch it. EastEnders had Phil, the axe murderer, in it, and that was a crazy show. I loved that. That was like the miniature killer in CSI Las Vegas. That shit kept you on the edge
what
of
a
your
great
seat.
subplot. Holy shit, the miniature killer.
One of the best.
Fuck.
I remember that fucking storyline at least once a month. Like it comes up into my mind.
Yeah, me too, dude.
Like her getting buried underground in the
don't.
Oh my god!
I can't. Getting buried underground is one of my worst nightmares, honestly.
Yeah, that was a bad one.
That subplot is actually fucking terrific.
Yeah, it was really good. It was really fucking good. And the fact
let's
that
get
it was
back to it
over,
before we
like,
talk
2 or
about
3
CSI.
seasons. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, before we talk about CSI for 6 hours. All right.
So more stuff that's revealed about Daisy. She has a boyfriend who's in Hull right now, which Tim mistakes for hell, obviously. She wants to be a journalist, but hasn't started at it yet. And so, like, she's not a journalist. Her best friend is named Twist, who is in the fashion industry, but she's a dry cleaner.
Yeah, it cuts to a shot of her folding clothes in a dry cleaner.
Yeah, so she's a dry cleaner. And yeah, she's afraid of rats and spiders, but more greatly fears the hybridization of the two. And the last point I noted was she has no skincare routine to speak of. So one of those little banal little details about her. So after that, they're kind of like taking photos as they're learning about each other.
Yeah,
they have a Polaroid camera that Daisy brings, and they start taking like it's like a montage kind of sequence where they have all the photos where they're like pretending to be in like skiing and like in a tropical resort and like that sort of thing.
And when they're just taking pictures outside of travel agencies, like with the backdrop of these things and stuff. Yeah, very, very, very classic plot. Yeah,
hey,
for a very classic ploy.
Whatever works for them.
I mean, it doesn't end up being necessary, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then once they kind of finalize the information about them, they say, "What's your name, by the way?" "Daisy. My name is Tim." And they shake hands, and they have like a really enthusiastic handshake. And I thought that it was great that they were completely willing to live together despite not knowing each other's first names.
Yeah.
You probably want to be on a first name basis with somebody if you're going to be living with them, as far as I can tell.
You could always just call them roommate.
Pardon me?
You could always just call them roommate. It doesn't really matter.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've got the establishing shot of the apartment coming in with all this ominous music. It's I believe it's 215 Meteor Lane in London. It's a actual building that exists in London. It was chosen by Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg. Still exists. People make the pilgrimage out to it quite often, but the
Spaced House.
Yeah, it's the Spaced House, man. Of course.
Yeah.
I wanted to do it, but it's pretty suburban. Last time I was in London, it was pretty hard to get to, so I didn't end up getting the chance because it would have taken me like literally 2.5 hours on transit both ways.
Shit.
It's like I'm in London right now. I could be doing a lot more than going to see the exterior of a house.
You could spend that 5 hours doing a whole lot.
Yeah, exactly. So they start looking at the apartment building. Marcia is introduced after answering the door. And they introduce themselves as a couple.
Yeah, Marcia, the landlord, the person who owns the house.
Marcia. She is a sultry, middle-aged alcoholic woman who is always smoking and is really, really overtly sexual with people who are very uncomfortable with it, essentially.
Yeah, seeks drama. I get the impression that she lives off of it.
A shit stirrer, no doubt. And if you go
Yeah.
into the second season, you'll see that play out after a certain point. And they just go through the apartment. They tour it. I love the establishing shot of the apartment, how it kind of comes in, and it's almost like a showroom for The Price is Right. Like they're showing something off like really fancy, and it's like one of like establishing like side sliding pan shots, like all that stuff. And it looks like a nice apartment, normal kind of 2-bedroom spot, pretty big. And they kind of get a tour around. Marcia takes them into the guest room and says, "Oh well, this is a guest room, but if you have another little baby on the way." They awkwardly respond, "Ha ha ha ha. Let's see. We'll see how it goes."
Yeah.
And then they open up the closet, and the closet it's just, and like the screen turns red, and it zooms in, and there are two girls dressed in like scout uniforms.
Yeah,
what seem
like Girl Scout uniforms.
Yeah. Whatever the British equivalent is, and Marcia asks, "Did you do the chores?" And they both say in unison, "We did the chores, Mrs. Marcia. We have done them very well." And it's like cutting back to Simon and Jessica Stevenson, or Daisy and Tim, kind of like terrified. And
yeah.
It's not addressed by Marcia at all.
Never again. It's never addressed. We never talk about it
until the end, where she said, "It's Dob Day" or something like that. And I think that means it's like take your kids to work day, or like there's like some sort of volunteer initiative in Britain that we're missing the reference on.
Yeah, but it was just a great way to throw in a quick reference to The Shining.
Oh yeah.
And I remember in that moment, what did I say? I was like, oh yeah, so that was pretty terrifying with the twins in the closet. I forgot this was in the same universe as Garth Marenghi's Darkplace.
Yeah, we got all the occult stuff coming through, just perforating through. You gotta
exactly.
Love it. Yeah, I love the Shining twins.
Yeah.
And they go back. They have an interview. They have a little interview. Marcia asks if they're employed, and it does like a smash cut away to Tim handing out flyers outside of the Fantasy Bazaar, like 50% off comics today or whatever, and then Daisy in front of her typewriter, completely asleep.
Yeah. Also, 50% off comics is a great deal.
Oh, big time. Yeah. If
comics are already cheap.
I'm probably remembering it wrong, but if that's the spot, if that's it, you can catch me booking a flight to England.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm going. The rates are worth it. The travel
exactly.
fees are worth it for
if
those
I buy in
deals.
bulk, it'll make it worth it. 10,000 comics, please. And yeah, so they do that smash cut, and they essentially just repeat, "Yep, we are busy, very, very, very busy.
Too
So
busy. We never see each other. God, we just don't even know.
Busy."
Busy bees. Nothing to do but work and.
Like the typical kind of like British just repeating something over and over and over again awkwardly.
Is that typical for Britain?
What's that?
Is that typical for England?
Yeah, that's typical British person. Trust me. Why you hear? If you talk to a British person on the phone, 90% of the time they're going to end the call with bye, 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 bye. Like they're the seagulls in Finding Nemo. Like, it's,
Mine?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. My mom does it. She has like the British accent through osmosis.
Yeah.
If she talks to any of my family. It's
I've heard her. I've heard her on the phone.
Insufferable. So essentially they get the apartment. Marcia is really accepting and believes them pretty much immediately without any sort of interrogation.
Seems like she's pretty desperate to rent the place, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, exactly. She just wants a couple. It seems like she's more lonely than she is in need of a tenant, though, and that's the difference. It's kind of like the Alfred Hitchcock story about the landlady who like she kind of like baits people in and then poisons them and then kills them, blah blah blah. It's an famous old Hitchcock story. It reminded me of that a little bit.
Yeah.
And they get the place. They get the place after confirming to Marcia that they've been together for 5 years, 8 months, 3 days. Haha. Knocks heads with each other.
Yeah.
And it cuts away, and Daisy's moving out of her apartment, her squat.
She lives in a trap house, dude.
Yeah, I wrote down here that Daisy's old flat is genuinely gross and scary.
It's a meth den.
It's really, yeah, it's definitely like people are nodding out there. You can see ashtrays like going up to the top of the ceiling. Like it's really gross. It's not good.
She's like moving out. She's like, okay, well, I'll give you a call if I got any questions about bills and stuff. And anyway, I'm gonna go.
And they're all nodding off, not responding.
I'm gonna take off.
Yep. Saying my goodbyes now. Yep.
Just gonna, maybe we'll get some coffee later. And...
No.
Okay.
No, you will not be.
You will not be. These people have no idea you exist.
Oh, did we lose you?
What?
Sam.
Hello.
We might have lost you.
Oh, what happened?
Oh no, we got technical difficulties. Okay,
God,
1 second,
happened?
folks.
Hello.
Hello.
Can you?
Yeah,
is
we're
everything
good
fine?
now.
That was weird.
Yeah, it's still recording. It's fine. It just it froze on you for a bit, so I just ended the call and I
Okay.
just said we'll end it. We'll say we had technical difficulties.
Cool.
Okay. Sorry,
Okay.
folks. Had technical difficulties.
Technical difficulties.
We were just saying before this. What were we saying?
She lives in a meth den. She says
yeah.
goodbye. Nobody cares.
Yep. Nobody cares at all.
Yep.
They want her out, I can imagine. And she has an absurd amount of stuff. She brings out a fully nude mannequin, which I always thought was strange for an adult individual to have.
Yeah, she's an artist.
Yeah, she's an artist. There you go.
They're both artists.
General artist.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it for Daisy's apartment. And then Tim gets his stuff. It cuts to Tim getting his stuff with our boy Nick Frost. Good
Nick
old
Frost.
Mike. He's in there, fully dressed in army surplus gear.
Yeah. He's in army khakis and a beret with his handlebar mustache and his like aviator they look like aviator sunglasses, but they're just normal glasses.
Yeah. His whole character is really strangely put together, and his whole persona is beautiful. And now that you've said that about Nick Frost's character not initially being in the script, it makes sense because he doesn't really say anything in the first episode. He's just there.
He doesn't.
He's
just there. He throws a box marked fragile in the back of the van very haphazardly, claps his hands and gets in. That's all we see him of, and that's all we see of him in the first episode.
And he's like one of the titular characters in the whole series.
Absolutely.
And as far as like Tim's development and everything goes. So I love Mike. Mike's the best. I feel like we should really revisit this show on another episode. Maybe like the second episode or something, because his character really comes into form, and the whole him being in the tree story and him being a kid with a giant mustache is just.
We also missed earlier when she's like, oh, and your best friend's name is Mike, and he's a weapons expert, and then it cuts to a grainy black and white, like looks like a clip from like the game Manhunt of just him with like a slingshot, and he shoots the slingshot and he goes, hey,
and
that's
you hear a
it.
cat in the background. I forgot that was in there. That was a big note that I missed. Fuck. Anyway.
No, it's fine.
Yeah.
We got to it now.
Yeah,
it's because
exactly.
it's relevant to this.
Yeah, it's just a little note that his character is introduced. So that's the second time his character is introduced then. And I just think in this scene specifically, it really shows off the talent of Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg and Jessica Stevenson's like direction and writing, because they're able to break into this like legitimately heartfelt monologue. So I'll set it up.
Yeah.
So Tim is getting his stuff back from Sarah's house, and
From his ex-girlfriend.
His ex-girlfriend, yeah. And she hands him a skateboard, and it's like, "Is that it?" And it's like, "Yep, that's pretty much the last thing." And she was asking if he has a phone number, if they need to contact, or if she needs to contact him about bills. And he says, "Well, Daisy's handling that right now." And she's like, "Daisy? Who's Daisy?" It's like, "This girl I'm moving in with." And he sees that it's bugging her. He kind of takes advantage of it and pretends that it's a real relationship, and kind of says like, "Well, I'm living with her. You got to move. I got to move on.
I've got my life isn't going to stop for you. You're already seeing somebody. You're already with. He really launches into this very heartfelt.
This tirade, but this tirade is kind of like, it's self-aware, like Tim's being an asshole about it. He's being like, he's not being a nice person about this.
He's trying to get some petty revenge because he's been hurt. Like that's this scenario.
Exactly. And then he sees the opportunity to get back with her when Sarah says, "Well, do you love her?" And he's like, "Oh, so she still feels something for me." Mm-hmm. So he goes into this whole emotional speech, which I think is brilliantly acted and brilliantly written. It's talking about like how this guy will always love her and how it'll never like change. Nothing in the world could change this, blah, blah, blah. And how she'll always be the one. It's hard to articulate it without actually seeing it and quoting it verbatim, but it's worth checking out. Or I mean, if you're watching the show, you're going to check it out regardless, but you get what
exactly.
I mean. And instead of responding to that with some sort of love, she slams the door in his face.
She says, all right then, and then closes the door in his face.
So that's enough for her. That's all she needs. She needs to have the fact that, or she's comfortable with the idea that he's adoring her from a distance, and she wants nothing to do with him, but she still wants him to herself. And this is that kind of characterization that I really love, because you can see that this lady is a piece of shit. And Tim is also a piece of shit. And it's not explicitly clear who is in the right and who is in the wrong in the relationship.
Right.
It's just kind of figuring out these details for yourself. You don't have
context clues. Everything about it is context clues.
Yeah. You don't have like smash cuts away to like her like screaming at him or something like that, or burning his clothes or doing anything super toxic. It's just a relationship that died. And this guy is lost a man-child, and he doesn't know how to deal with it. And it's kind of heartbreaking to watch this specific scene, and then it just be followed up with this cold ambivalence to his entire being and to his love. And like, it's just this small little scene, like maybe a minute long, and it's just really poignant. I really like this scene a fucking lot. I just think this is a fantastic scene overall. And then after that, I think that's the end of that interaction there. I
think that they then it's just them getting set up in the apartment, and it's Daisy there. She's in there doing her stuff, and
she's alone. First
she's alone cleaning the apartment.
Tim is still, or he's out doing something else. And Daisy is walking through the apartment, and she talks to the mannequin, and it's one of my favorite little lines that she has. "Hey, Mr. Naked Nipple Lady, what you doing here?"
Mr. Naked Lady with no nipples.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I love that. And she puts a little boa over top of her nipples.
Yeah, cover yourself up, love.
Yeah, exactly. Have some class. And she goes into Tim's room because she thinks she hears a noise. And
this scene is very like, it's set up like a horror scene. Like, she hears a noise and she's going, and the creepy music's coming in. And she's like kind of making her way
like X-Files
into the room. Yeah,
exactly. And she sees a cardboard box. Somehow his costume that he wears at the Fantasy Bazaar place comes out and like attacks him or attacks her, and like she falls down, and Tim comes into the house, and he's like, "What's going on? Why are you in my room?" And I thought that this was a cool kind of interaction, because Tim doesn't know her. Tim doesn't know her at all, and he comes home, and she's in his room snooping around,
covered in his suit because she tapped a box and it fell on her.
Yeah, because she was snooping around. Like, he could have been like, "Oh, you're trying to steal from me. Like, what are you doing? You got caught red-handed trying to steal from me." But it just shows either it gives insight into his naivete or into his trusting nature that could lead to his own demise a little bit, which I think you could argue does happen a little bit at several points in the series, and I think that it's cool. It's a nice little moment that this guy trusts this girl, like he believes in her, and I think I might just be like overreaching, like some like Sherlock fan on Tumblr in 2014, but at the same time, I've watched this show a lot, so I guess I have to overthink about it for it to be entertaining.
Sure.
Yeah, and so Tim and her kind of start talking about Scooby-Doo. They bring up Scooby-Doo.
Oh, this is very funny. Yeah.
this was
Because so she's like, sorry, I thought I heard a noise. He's like, what are you doing? He's like, I just was tidying up. She's very embarrassed and she's bumbling out of there. And he's like, okay, well, like, I'm not mad, but like also, I don't know, this is kind of weird. And so then she goes over. She's like, yeah, you know, I don't know, I heard a noise. I wanted to investigate. He's like, oh yeah, you playing Scooby-Doo? And she's like, yeah, you know, I used to play it all the time when I was a kid. And he's like, yeah. She was like, who are you? I'm like, well, I was Fred, obviously. She was like, oh yeah, I was always a Daphne. You know, look at us now. And the camera pans out, and she's dressed exactly like Velma, and he's dressed exactly like Shaggy.
Yeah, like she.
And
has
I thought it was perfect.
She has her glasses on top of her head, and she excuse me.
Oh,
thank you. She like takes off a sweater or something, or takes something off.
It's like an apron, I think. She's wearing an apron.
Yeah, that's what it is. And it knocks off the glasses and it puts it on. It's like the perfect frames, the perfect sweater, and they look like Velma and Shaggy.
It's so funny.
It's perfect. I really like that joke. And after that, yeah, it's essentially just like conversations for the most part. After that,
they're sitting
action happens.
on the couch smoking weed, and he's talking about his comic book. I think that's the
That's
thing,
the next scene. Yeah, so
we learn about his comic book.
The bear, and he goes on like this really long, convoluted rant about what the book is about and how it's like this bear that was given, or this orphan kid who was given some sort of chemical when he was a kid.
Yeah, the evil Dr. Mandrake.
Yeah, the evil Dr. Mandrake, and then he hits puberty, and the chemical interrupts his DNA's processing or something, his genetic code and foundation, so he ends up turning into a bear, and now the doctor is chasing after the bear in order to recreate this so he can make a bunch of super soldiers for the government. And Daisy is looking so fucking bored about this whole idea, and she's like, why doesn't the doctor just make the chemical again? And Tim pauses for a second, he looks around, he's like, he tries to explain it away, and she's like, oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, sure, whatever.
Yeah. He's very obviously embarrassed because he hadn't considered that plot hole before.
Yeah, and this is something that he's obviously been writing for like 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, like, a long time.
Yeah, he shows her like a full binder of the stuff. And one of my favorites in the episode, she like has a segue, and she's like, that reminds me, Marcia told me about the rubbish.
Oh yeah. She's like, yeah. So what do you think of my comic? She's like, yeah, it's good. That reminds me about the rubbish. Yeah.
Marcia
It's very funny.
The rubbish. And Tim is a dumbass, and he doesn't see the obvious insult that just happened here. And he's like, oh, okay, so I'll just take out the rubbish now. So he goes and takes the trash out. Which now we have Brian. Enter Brian.
And then we Brian. Enter Brian.
Good old Brian. Dressed in nothing but a straw cowboy hat.
Yeah.
Which is a disturbing image, but he's sculpted like a statue.
Yeah, he's introduced by Tim drops his keys, and and then a door creepily opens. There's so many like weird homages to horror films in this. The door creepily opens, and it's a pitch black room except for the moonlight coming in through a window. And he just looks up and he's like, hello, and then you just see from the shadows this man walk out into frame, completely buck naked, wearing nothing but a cowboy hat. And he's like, oh, hi.
Hello. And yeah, that's Brian. Brian is this inexplicably strange character who has no real rhyme or reason other than he's an artist.
We cut to him coming to the apartment. And he explains his art at one point, and I was like, oh, he's like a real Goya guy. Like he's a real like Saturn eating his children kind of deal.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Yeah. Well, he has the like he enters in and he's wearing a dressing gown. And
like a geisha gown. Like it looks like
like a silk kimono.
It's a kimono. Yeah, that's what I meant to say. Yeah.
Odd choice of dress. But
and he still has his cowboy hat on. A kimono is a cowboy hat.
Yeah, exactly. Well, of course, you can't
Yeah.
abandon the cowboy hat. That's the most
Of course
quintessential
not.
part of his outfit.
Yeah.
And Daisy asks, "Do you live downstairs?" And
Are
he says,
you? Yeah.
"Do you
Are
live?
you renting downstairs?
Are you renting
or something?
downstairs?" And he says, "Are you asking if I'm gay?" And she's like, "No." And he's like, "Oh, okay. I sort of rent downstairs." And Tim's like, "Well, are you gay?" And he just goes, "No." Just like completely unclear about it. And Tim's like, "Okay,
Yeah.
I don't know how to deal with that." So
Yeah.
they don't really talk about it anymore. And he sits down. She's like, "Oh, I'll get you a glass of wine." Brian says like, "Oh, I'm not going to stay for long." And then it has like a 1 hour later thing where they use an ashtray as the O. And there's a bunch of cigarettes already in the ashtray. And Daisy seemingly has spoken for the entire time endlessly about herself,
Yes.
which is to be expected of her character at this point.
Yeah.
And Brian reveals that he's an artist, and that he likes to explore anger. And
he says he's an artist, and then that perks Tim up. He's like, "Oh, what kind of art do you do? I'm a graphic designer. What kind of art do you do?" Yeah.
Tim makes cartoons. Well, it's a bit more than that.
Yeah.
And he goes through all of the things that he does: anger, pain, fear, and aggression, and all of these are complemented by these like Jacob's Ladder type kind of shots of him being angry and like smashing an egg with a hammer, and him being scared,
crying, him like cutting his finger and then like putting blood on a canvas,
and he says,
like all this kind of stuff.
When he does it, like it's good. And he's like attacking the canvas with his brushes and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what his sort of deal is. And then Daisy relates Tim to him by saying, "Well, Tim does cartoons." After and he's like, "Well, it's a bit more than that." And then all of a sudden you hear
not really the same.
Yeah, exactly. And you hear all of a sudden upstairs, you hear Amber, Marcia's daughter, storm out of the upstairs apartment.
A really interesting camera shot here. They have the camera at the top of the room near the ceiling looking down on them, and then as you listen to Amber coming down the stairs, the camera is panning down in relation to the sound effect getting louder, and then down to the bottom. It's very cool.
It like starts over here, like looking down, and then she leaves the apartment. You can hear the door slam. It like moves over, and then it moves down. Yeah, it's a cool shot. It's
very, very clever.
Well, it brings into play like Edgar Wright's whole musical kind of filmmaking, like what you were saying before, his timing and everything. And now, like this is the wind down of the episode. Pretty much, you have Marcia come downstairs and kind of approach Brian in a weirdly sexual way. In a way,
she says, Brian explains that was the daughter leaving.
Yeah.
Marcia will be here in any minute now. Don't ask her about it.
Yeah, don't ask if she wants to talk about it. Do not ask if she wants to talk about it. And then she comes downstairs and starts talking about how her husband left her for a dog.
It cuts to like another hour later.
Yeah, like another hour later, she's been talking. They're all kind of drunk at this point. And Marcia is constantly kind of like making sexual allusions to Brian. And at one point, they ask Tim and Daisy about how long they've been dating, that sort of thing. And they say the same date that they had said 2 days before, like, "Oh, we've been dating 5 years, 8 months, 3 days." And Marcia says, "You said that 2 days ago." And they kind of, Brian starts interrogating them, and they honestly,
we get into a little bit of the insight of the beginning of like the kind of the conflict for the show of like, oh, we have to keep this ruse going.
Yeah, and
that's really the point of the scene.
Yeah, it's not a very fun scene to explore either, because it's just kind of like back and forth, like, oh, do they know? Oh, they don't know. Oh, maybe they do know, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I think
there is one funny gag though, where she's like, now would be a great, in her thoughts, it's like a voiceover, and it's like, now would be a great time for that psychic connection, huh? And she looks over, and he doesn't say anything. Ah, fuck. And she cuts back to her, shit, didn't work.
Yeah, but the funny thing is, later on,
Yeah.
they have, like, she tries to do it again. She's like, does it by nature almost, and he responds, and she's like, what?
Yeah, she's
What's
like in
happening?
her mind. She's like in the voiceover. It's like that was weird, and then it cuts to him, and he says, "You can say that again out loud."
Very on point. She's so
Very
perturbed by
funny.
this. And yeah, they have like a telepathic conversation, a little bit, like that. I think that bit's clever. That's like the most serious bit. And essentially, they get out of the situation, the social situation, by explaining their way out of it, and very sitcom-like kind of social situation. And they pretty much just go to bed after that. That's the end of the episode.
Everybody leaves. This is sort of like a fun way just to sort of establish like the relationships in the house and the people who live in the house and how people are going to come and go. We get to meet pretty much all the characters.
Yeah, for the most part, I think
the most part.
There's twist that comes up later, and the boyfriend or the ex-friend gets expanded on way more, Dwayne, but that doesn't happen until like 4 episodes in, I think. This is a very good primer for like how you're going to enjoy the rest of the series, though. I think it gets way better as it goes on, but it's definitely,
as with most pilots.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is kind of like the pilot test zone here. Like, we're testing out pilots. Like, is it worth actually watching, or like does it get better, kind of thing. So if somebody sees this later on and they don't like the pilot, they can maybe use the information we're presenting today.
Yeah.
And yeah, Tim. The ending joke is Tim sneaks back out and grabs a magazine.
Yeah. They go to bed. They close the door.
Yeah. They close the door, and Tim sneaks back out to pick up a magazine of Gillian Anderson doing like a lingerie shoot, which is like a little masturbation joke at the very end of it.
Just to button up the episode.
Yeah, just to
button up a nice little masturbation joke.
Yeah, a little nice little bow. It's good. And that's pretty much it. That's the episode.
Yeah.
It's good. It's really good. It's a good pilot. I think it's fun. Yeah. It sets up the characters really well. Really eloquently and like succinctly as well. Like, they don't go way too much into the backstory of everybody.
They leave enough up in the air that there's lots of room to expand. As they continue.
Well, they don't want to lock themselves into a characterization that they find doesn't work with the plot that they want to do. So I appreciate the kind of conservative nature, but also the fact that like they do give a good idea of pretty much everybody who's going to be in the show. And overall, I love the show. It's one of my favorites. I recommend it to literally everybody. If you like Shaun of the Dead, if you like Hot Fuzz, anything from the Cornetto trilogy, Baby Driver, or if you just like British comedy, fun stuff, it's very short. It's 2 seasons. Yeah. You can watch it in a day. You can watch it in 2
they're
days.
half an hour a piece. There's 14 episodes. It'll take you 7 hours to get through it.
Yeah.
Like, you can easily crank through it pretty fast. And same thing with Garth Marenghi. Like, those episodes are half an hour and there's only 6 of them.
Yeah.
Like, it'll take you 3 hours. It'll take you basically the runtime of a movie to get through the whole show.
Pretty much.
You know. Also, both are available on YouTube in their entirety.
Yeah. Not officially.
I don't think...
It's not
officially.
It's not an official link, but they are available online.
It's because, I mean, with Garth Marenghi specifically, like, I don't think it's really owned or really they don't really care too much. The show is such a cult hit that it's not a big deal if you find it. It's all on YouTube.
I can't imagine the creators are trying to find all the pirated copies or anything like that. At a certain point, piracy.
It's not a real moneymaker for any kind of production house.
No. Like, they're not going to get a Netflix deal for Garth Marenghi.
Yeah,
that would be a
as much as I wish they would.
Yeah, that would
because it would get some exposure for sure.
Fully funded Garth Marenghi season. Count me in for sure. Yeah, man. Do you have any final conclusions? Concluding thoughts?
Not really. I mean, this was a good little trip because this is just two shows that we both have a lot of passion for, respectively.
Exactly.
So I think this episode was really just us geeking out, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah, it's kind of just gushing. But I'm happy with this. I think, like, with everything that's going on in the world right now, I feel like we just need a little comedic break, and we don't need to.
It was nice to sit back and be like, hey, these are fun. Yeah. Check these out.
Like, we did Idiocracy last week, and that was a dark tale.
That was quite the episode.
And
that was
we had
fun.
to kind of do our own research for it a little bit afterwards, and like it was fun, but it was exhausting a little bit because I don't think that either of us really liked it that much, other than like in totality with all of the
Well,
sum
I mean,
of its
yeah.
parts.
Exactly, but that's the point. Like I'm kind of looking forward to doing more stuff that I don't necessarily like because it's like I don't know. I'm interested to to explore all these different things, right?
I'm just as passionate about my
Yeah.
hatred as I am about my affection.
There it
So
is.
there you go. Yeah.
Michael Scott.
Yeah, exactly, Michael Scott. I'll end this off, I guess.
Yeah.
But it was great talking to you, Sam. It's always
Great
a
talking
pleasure.
to you, Tony.
We'll be back next week or whenever
Yeah.
the release schedule starts. This is the first
Whatever we figure out.
5 episodes. We're going to kind of record in a bunch, and then we'll be releasing them sequentially, depending on what our scheduling that we want to end up doing is.
Yeah.
I guess we'll end off with Black Lives Matter, Black Trans Lives Matter, Trans Lives Matter, and
Sex
defund
work
the
is real
police.
work.
Sex work is
Defund
real
the
work.
police.
And not saying these as memes, but I need to say them at the end. We need to be saying this sort of
Genuinely,
stuff. Yeah.
like, come on.
Yep. Indigenous lives matter. Like, we need to do better. Everybody needs to be doing better right now.
Call your cancelors. Sorry, cancel your
counselors.
cancel your counselors. Put new ones in there. Get out there and vote.
A municipally
Send them an email.
elected Twitter mob that cancels people. You got the mayor.
Cancel
Get
it.
the cancelers on here.
Got the cancelors on the phone. We got to get them out of this ward.
Yeah. No. Call your counselors if you're pissed off about something. Leave a message. Tell a counselor to SMD. Tell a counselor to go fuck himself. Do whatever you need to do. Get politically active.
Yeah.
Mobilize yourself. Go to protests. Do all the good things. And wear a mask.
Be safe. Wear a mask.
Be
Be safe.
safe. Please, for the love of God, be safe.
Yeah.
All right, friends. Sam, it's been a pleasure.
As always.
As always. All right, man. We'll talk soon.
Take care, everybody.
Take care. Outro. Go.
Ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.